welcome back to a new video, this time again a hints and fears video leading us directly to Gila, everything I've recognized during episode 3, all the hints leading to her, I will explain you today. And as a little explainer for the interesting beginning of the video, especially for all internationals, there is a show called Molenstreke on Dutch TV, and you can also watch it on YouTube here. And it is presented by Rutjes, who is the son of a former candidate of WIDM-App. And it is also produced by Avro Tros, just like WIDM-App. And that, of course, can either give us the idea that they are leading us in the wrong direction, or it could also give us the idea that there are some hidden hints as well. And why I used the show today in the intro is because this time Gila was the most suspicious one in the show. So they all get those Molenstreken, those little magnets whenever they do something suspicious, and Gila got the most magnets, most Molenstreken this time, making her the most suspicious one. And yeah, this is just a little tip for everyone who wants to see something funny and cute, because this show is actually produced for children, but I think it also makes so much fun to watch it as an adult. It is like a hints and theories video somehow, but just in a very, very funny way. I really love that show. But now on to the hints leading us to Gila, and we'll start with task 1. And in the task they had to throw those balls, and Gila was in the water all the time. So there are two things that make her suspicious in that task. The first thing is that actually the task for those who were in the water was not only to throw the balls back, but also they were allowed to move the boats a little to help the ones shooting the balls. And when Letizia asks Gila to do that, she, says that it doesn't work. And then we see an interview scene with her in which she tells us that, yeah, of course it was kind of her task, but it was also Letizia's task to throw the balls far enough. So she basically says, well, I knew it was my task, but I don't care. And she just blames everything on Letizia not throwing the balls far enough while she didn't do anything. The second thing about that task is that we barely see her at all again. So that little conflict or conversation she had with Letizia is almost everything we see about her in that task. Off to task number 2, the laser game one, and there are some things going on. The first thing in that task is that she concentrated on shooting her opponents instead of finding, or let's say even searching for those boxes with the money in them. And she even admits that during one interview scene, in which she says that, well, actually she knows that it wasn't a task to shoot that opponent and to search for the boxes. But well, why didn't you do it then, Gila? And the second thing in that task is that once Velmut and Thomas were out of the field, she had some minutes alone in there. And in the WIDM-App fan community, some fans figured out the company who produces those lockets that they used in the task. And they also figured out that you can change the fingerprint with which you can open the lock. So maybe if Gila was the mole, she had the ability and she knew how to change those locks. Because once she left the field, she tells the others that she was almost at every lock and didn't get any money. And that of course made people suspicious, Velmut for example. And it would also explain why Kim Lian, who was in the next group, said that she also was at almost every box and couldn't get any open, but still other people found some. So maybe Hila changed a few of them, but not all. Well, we don't know it, it's just a theory that is going on in the WIDM-App fan community at the moment, but I wanted to let you know it anyways. Now off to task number 3, and of course I think it is very obvious why Hila is suspicious here, because she simply is in the most crucial position in that task. And there are actually 4 reasons why that position is so important and crucial. If you've watched my hints and theories video about episode number 3, then you probably already noticed 4 hints. If not, or just as a reminder, I will give a quick recap on that now. The first reason, of course, is that she could take a lot of money out of the pot. The second one is that the zwarte vrijstelling, so the black exemption, is the most dangerous weapon in that game. As a candidate you want to have it to save yourself, as a mole you want to have it to look like a candidate, and it also gives you some control over the game. And of course she had to use it, she had to buy it and had to use it simply because the others know that she had the possibility to do that, and they know that she knew that they could all have green exemptions, which of course would have meant that if they all had a green one and she had no black one, that she would have to leave the game. So it is just logical that even if she is the mole, she needs to buy that and she needs to put it in so that all other exemptions and jokers get invalid. Otherwise it wouldn't be logical if she was still in the game. I know they didn't all have green ones, but of course you can't know that before the game is played. The third reason is that it gives you some time away from the group. So some time to do some information exchange with the production team, for example, or simply some time to have some minutes of rest to be out of those while checking eyes, questions thrown around. Yeah, just some minutes as a break. And the fourth reason is that as a mole you don't want to be in a face-to-face duel, in a face-to-face situation with one of the candidates. This is really not what you want to happen in episode number 3. And if you ask me, actually she wouldn't have needed to buy a higher chance to finding the black exemption because of 2 reasons. The first reason, of course, is that, well, maybe there was the same thing in all of those 4 envelopes once they knew that she definitely is the treasurer in that episode. And the second reason is that back in 2018, Merel was the mole and they had several tasks with envelopes, and later on she told us that she already always knew which one she had to take. So this could all just be a little theater scenario to make it look like she doesn't know anything and she needs to buy a higher chance. Also, this whole task would explain why Hila was so extremely eager to become the treasurer in episode number 1. And of course, as a mole, she would have known that she needs to be treasurer in episode number 3, which would explain why she wanted to be treasurer that much. So far so good, so much about the tasks. I also have 2 more, let's say, a bit more general hints leading to her. The first one is that we see a lot of cats. If you remember from the last Is Hila the Mole video, then you know that we also have a lot of scenes with water, which could lead to her, but also the cats could lead to her as well. I know that there are some other people who have a cat in that pool of candidates or other, well, relations to cats. And if you ask me, then it isn't that unlikely that such an easy hint, a very obvious hint, leads to several people simply to, well, make it not so obvious anymore, to have a lot of possibilities so that, well, each fan can pick out their own tunnel vision and theory out of that hint. The second thing is, and yeah, I know we could discuss about it as well, if you remember, in the first episode we had a lot of discussions going on about that 1122 number play thing, and people started to check out if someone is to be seen at 11:22, so 11 minutes 22 seconds in the show, and 22 minutes 11 seconds in the show. and it wasn't really obvious in the first episode and in the second one, so that didn't lead to anything and people stopped most likely trying it. At least I haven't seen anyone who had tried it in episode number 3, but I did. And guess what? At both those time stops we have Gila. So at 11:22 we already hear her talking, and 2 seconds later we also see her talking. It's during the ball tasks, so task number 1, where she tells us that weird thing that I explained a little bit earlier in this video. And at 22 and 11 seconds we also see her talking, and well, could be by accident, but maybe not. So maybe the production team thought in episode number 1 a lot of people would check that out because the number play was quite obvious, and it would have simply been too risky to do that in episode number 1 and maybe 2. But yeah, I think it is kinda suspicious that she appears in both time stamps this time. But let's keep checking that out in episode number 4 and so on. And last but not least, I also want to tell a bit about maybe people who are skeptical, because Suzanne and Wermut, 2 of the ones who left the game, said that they were on Hila. And I want to give you a little explanation why they probably had to leave, although they were suspecting Hila. First, have a look at Suzanne. So she left the game in the first episode and she told us during her test that she suspected Hila. And well, there are a few reasons why she could have left even though she had probably the right mole. The first reason is that it was the first test. They haven't known each other for that long. They probably didn't know that much about each other now, and as we know from older seasons, those test questions can be very detailed, and you really have to talk to the other people to figure some things out, because not all of those test questions refer to the tasks that have been done. And of course for us as viewers it's also not very easy because we don't get to see all the test questions. So maybe she even had the last question, who the mole is, right? But if she has like that one right and answers 10 others wrong, then of course it could still throw her out of the game. The second thing is that maybe she was too slow. You can either be thrown out of the game because you have too many mistakes in the tests, or because you are too slow, and we only barely get to know which of those 2 reasons it was. So that is an option 2. And option number 3, and probably the most likely one, is that we had the live stream in that episode. And as we know, Glenn won that special Freistellung, that special exemption, but he had to leave the game in episode number 2. So maybe, if Glenn hadn't won the exemption, then he would have already left the game in episode number 1, and the exemption only saved him for that first round. So maybe Suzanne actually wasn't the one with the most wrong answered questions. Maybe she was the second one, or even the third, we don't know how everyone did that test in round number 1, and well, maybe that led to her leaving the game. In episode number 3 we get to see Wermut, and while Wermut voted on quite a lot of people, she spread her answers, which is a good idea in the beginning of the season, but at some point you have to, well, lower the amount of people you spread onto, and she already spread on 3, and then she said, well, Hila said that suspicious thing during task number 2, I will have to make sure that some of those questions also refer to her. Well, 4 people she's spreading on is quite much in episode number 3, and also she said that she wanted to make sure that some questions also lead to Hila. Well, we don't know if she actually did that, on how many questions she did that, and she had some people in there who were in other teams, for example, and if she answered those questions differently, then of course she wouldn't have a lot right if Hila is the mole, and that could have led to her leaving the game. So a lot of new hints leading to Hila, I guess. Let me know what you think about all those theories, if you think Hila could be the mole or not. And definitely let me know what you think about Suzanne and Wermut, who had Hila on their list and still had to leave the game. On Friday there will be another quick hints video in which I introduce you to 3 more quick hints. that we haven't discussed in the first Hints and Theories video to episode number 3 yet. And if you want to make sure you don't miss that one, then make sure to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram if you would like, or join our Internationals Facebook group. Until the next video, bye!